Yeah, in the booklet, in the text I wanted to have in this little booklet for draft, I suggested a different text which mentioned the essay that has been mentioned 2 times already in this conference, Revolution and Public Happiness, the full title of Hannah Arendt's essay. And public happiness is, I think, a very important thing, a concept one should think about again. But I will take a small detour. So I will start with 4 images that are a little bit more theoretical. And after that will follow 165 images with concrete practices where I don't know if we will manage to get further than the first 4. This is a drawing I made for the Istanbul Biennial 2013, and I was looking at the gardens. Gardens, of course, parks are a very political issue in Istanbul since May 2013. However, I came across the very specific garden tradition of the Ottomans in the 90s when we were dealing with Park Fiction, a project in Hamburg where I might be able to talk about if I get through the first part. However, we had a lot of Turkish migrants in our community, so I wanted to get an idea of what kind of garden they might be interested in. I came across a very nice essay by a guy called Maurice Shirazi, who developed this theory about gardens in Istanbul, which are different from garden shapes in the whole rest of the Islamic world, where you have this cross-shaped garden that you know from the Mughal gardens also, or in Morocco or Persia and other places, Islamic places, and they relate to the Quran and so on. I don't want to go too deep into it, but in the Bosporus there was a different tradition, and this tradition was a very hedonistic garden. A garden that was used by the people who lived in this metropolis here. This is supposed to represent Istanbul in the time of the Ottomans. Is this working?
It's dropping. Okay.
Yeah, it's inverting. Oh, yeah, this is better. Okay. Yeah, this is Istanbul. And people left the city to go into the countryside, where they used little plots of land that were just needed a lawn, a little well, and trees to give shadow and a view onto the Bosporus, onto the water. And this hedonistic practice has a lot to do with our idea of public space, because the public space under the Ottomans didn't really exist. As you probably all know, the Ottomans had this kind of very specific layer of power, which is represented by this airplane up here. And there was no possibility for aristocrats to move up in ranks or for merchants to become very rich, because the Ottoman Empire had this Janitschar system of recruiting the whole administration from people who were drawn from Christian, Greek, Armenian and so on families, converted to Islam, and then kind of built this type of clone army thing that I think it's resembling. But you are not so avid watchers of Star Wars, I see. Okay, this was the government, and it was there was no public space in the sense as it was developing in Central Europe at the time. But instead, collectivity was acted out in these family and friendship circles, and the hedonistic lifestyle developed. These big groups of 10 to 50 people, of family and friend members, would travel to the countryside, be in the gardens, watch the Bosporus, enjoy the company of their friends, and then go back to the city. This hedonistic character of the people from Istanbul was very often seen as something that is kind of not as good in the sense of citizenship, participation in public affairs, and so on. I see it a bit differently, because I think in the case of Gezi, we saw how these hedonistic qualities started to enter public space and alter it and revive qualities that it has actually lost in the territories where it is installed legally. I don't know how much you followed it, but I would like to take up an argument that Lawrence made on the first day. Everyday practices that are enacted as kind of political practices. I arrived in Istanbul for the third time 6 weeks after Gezi was over, and at that moment it was of course impossible to gather in the Gezi Park. Instead, one had to gather, people gathered in 80 parks around the city. Different local forums came up and protest iftars. Fast breaking for Muslims and non-Muslims, and the first night I went to one that was like 1.5 hours away from the center, and this is drawn here. I'm the person represented by this latte to go cup here, and the magic thing in this situation was that I came there as a foreigner. I was integrated into this round within seconds, and we had the type of talk that you would have in a small salon where hand-picked people are being pieced together or put together, and the type of conversation that went from exchanging cooking recipes, philosophy, politics, back to what do you do as a job and how much does it suck. These type of conversations you usually don't have or are by now, I think, excluded from public speech. And I had the feeling that these hedonistic qualities that allow for a different type of conversation entered public space and very much gave the character of the Gezi movement, which I think should be imitated in all other places in the world. That's why I'm mentioning it. Coming to the next point, how do you connect these types of localized struggles? That's the very important third point I wanted to make. Yeah, bodies and space. I think we should get away a bit from discourse and more into the direction of space and bodies. And actually we have to fight for the spaces in the city, which are of course made by actions and by stories. One could say this is discourse, but I'm not a philosopher, but it's the presence of bodies in these central spaces that makes the difference, and one can't take refuge, I think, in media or other places. One thinks there could be an escape. And I think that's something that all the movements of the last 3 or 4 years actually brought out. And I think it's kind of important to develop these spaces as platforms of exchange of knowledge. And I think this idea that I just explained along the lines of a hypothetic, hedonistic thing that the Istanbulites are very good at, very much corresponds with the model of Henri Lefebvre how he describes the different levels how cities are organized. The level small p, the private level that we also saw very well described yesterday in the architect's talk. When stories were told, when small changes are made, which are totally inventive, and when the whole inventiveness of a society is kept here, while the big strategic political thinking on level G is actually destroying these types of cities, which you can see, of course, in India in very dramatic cases, but it's, of course, a global phenomenon. This was also the basis, of course, of the idea of Erdogan, when he tried to evict Gezi Park and build a shopping mall there. And it was, in Lefebvre's theory, the revolution of the cities, or the urban revolution, is a movement that starts from these qualities that come from the private sector, invade the medium terrain between the global and the private sector, and will be fought out in this territory. And I think this proved totally right in the last years. It is becoming more important because these urban spaces are now the spaces of production, and the class that you find here very often is exactly the new class that is like doing design, needing cities to work in, needing cities for ideas, needing cities for exchange and so on. And in that sense, this kind of dispersed class also needs a different space, different, the city is really replacing the factory in this situation, because to interrupt the city is a very powerful thing. So when it is becoming possible that in Istanbul 80 parks are being used and squatted, then it is quite an important sign, and you could actually lock down the most important city of Turkey with so many people, and that would have an economic effect, of course. So I think one really has to seriously think about these options. Coming to Hamburg, it was already on this map, but I think I skipped the part about the verbal poetry and all this. Many people miss these introductions to their cities. This is a very short introduction to Hamburg. We have a central area which is called the Business Improvement District, has an attached mass shopping area, a gay upmarket latte zone, a latte zone which means like, you could also call it the to-go zone, yeah? It's like a totalized coffee day type of zone. And I live in this area, which is the maritime event zone. It's kind of famous as St. Pauli, and the area that Alice spoke about, the Hafen City, is under a different jurisdiction, and it's a total corporate kind of development, where since 10 years the city tried to place art to make the place interesting. Art in public space, of course. So contradictions. This is what this development looks like. I have 4 minutes for the remaining 140 pictures. You have to re-invite me. This is Park Fiction in a very, very fast thing, because people know it. Many people know it. I can't go deeper into it now. The city wanted to sell the land. We organized an autonomous, independent planning process. At the end, this was accepted by the city, and the park is now existing. This was the first year. Okay. Opening in 2005. So this took us 10 years. Right to the city movement started. Yeah, I have one myself, thank you. Quick which exists in Durban. I think you were referring to it, to the right to the city movement of Durban. So the park is now existing since 10 years, and it's used for different types of forms of resistance, like the Schwabing Art Ballet, for instance, who worked with Dimitri as well, did a thing against the Euro crisis. And it's also in the midst of this spectacle. Every 2 years, Hamburg lights up its harbor, all the cruise ships come, and it's always this blue light, and it's also an artist who does this, affiliated to one of the biggest shopping mall developers. However, yeah, this happens, and because we still have the park, the Schwabing Art Ballet mounted also some things from Mian here. This fuck you, and everybody understood it. It was understood, but didn't become too prominent. Only 2 days after this event was over, there was a photo competition going on. And the fuck you was voted for as the most beautiful blue goals or blue Tuesdays photo. This, of course, made the news, and then several fuck you photos went up. And the blue light, the official, cost 6 million euros, and this was less than 100. And the image destruction was quite extreme. This is the fantastic megaphone choir, which is even more refined than Schwabing Art Ballet, but I can't go into it. This is the moment, one day, 20 hours after Gezi Park in Istanbul was cleared by the police. These people congregated in the park and renamed it into Gezi Park Fiction St. Pauli. And we sent this photo out as a note of solidarity to the people in Istanbul. And afterwards, it started to work as a kind of hub or platform, like this Turkish tea wagon came up. And the type of the taxi pioneers came by spontaneously and made a concert. And it became this kind of informal space of resistance or discussion at the same time, more discussion than obvious resistance. And yeah, I would say of public happiness maybe. And then, fortunately, Beşiktaş Istanbul was playing against St. Pauli, our local football club, and they both have very leftist fan groups. And a demonstration started at the stadium and ended in the park in a not so spontaneous party. I have to go deeper into it, but I think that it's really essential to connect these urban struggles properly and to really leave the frame of these nationalist politics campaigns. And I can't speak about the Plan Bude anymore, I think, which is the latest book. Yeah, that's my own thing. You have to watch it like that. I mean, some of you, like Lawrence was, I think, in Hamburg 10 years ago, and all this has come up afterwards. So in St. Pauli, it's a very small area, but I have to stop it. Sorry.